Good evening once again, friends. Thank you for joining. I would like to read for February 7th the quote from Living Wisely, Living Well. Kriyanandaji says, "Keep in your heart a constant flowing conversation with God. Address Him in the second person as you, not he or she, nor even in the nowadays stilted form thou. Share with him or her, your cosmic friend, every thought, every feeling of your heart." Isn't this a beautiful counsel? You know, Paramahansa Yogananda ji defined meditation as concentration on God, or one of his aspects, such as peace, calmness, joy, light. Yogananda ji outlined 8 of them. But then it is easier to feel him, in meditation, because the body is very still, it is relaxed. We've perhaps done some yoga practice or energization before. We've chanted, the mind is relaxed, the feelings are very much, you might say, calm. And we can feel God, very closely sometimes. We can see Him as light, we can hear Him as the sound of Om. Those deeper inner expressions can come. But then, the meditation ends and we have to go out. And so many devotees have often wondered, oh, why do we have to go out? It's like Swamiji also, actually it was Master, he prayed to Divine Mother, why can't I stay in my temple, my meditation room, and I will do just the same things. I will bless people, I will send showers of, prayers from here. And I'm sure, we all know actually, it is quite a valid path. There are many yogis, who perform their great service that way. But for some reason, let's put it, it's our karma, it's our dharma, we find ourselves. Swamiji used to say it was his duty, especially, he said that to share these teachings in a very outward way. And when we are faced with that, you might say, challenge of being out with people, interacting, perhaps actually, as most of us, I would say, find ourselves in a 8 to 10, perhaps 12 hours work schedule, and you wonder, oh my goodness, am I wasting my time, or why is this happening? But friends, I must share something over here, that yes, it must be karma. I remember when I was doing long shifts, I had come to Ananda briefly, I had seen and felt the deep peace all the devotees had to share. And but then I went back to my work, where I was working as a training surgeon, so very busy shift, sometimes beyond 24 hours even. And I would say, okay, I don't have the good karma of perhaps sitting down to meditate, but nothing can stop me from chanting God's name in my heart, from thinking as often as I wanted. The eyes, the smile of those wonderful Guru Bhais, of Swami Kriyananda ji, of Yogananda ji, keeping reminders all around me. And I realize that I can say this, and I'm sure you will agree too, that a major transition, a leap of the quality or of my feelings, or how I led my life, you might say, in terms of earlier if it was just work, and then you're still continuing. Actually, we all get better with our work, but we are also feeling so joyful. It's as if there is something which is continuously, nourishing us. That is the presence of God. And you can say, I actually had not even learned meditation, but still I was feeling so happy, so joyful, that I can testify that this is a very great tool, and one need not actually feel that his or her outer involvement is in any way taking them away from this, or taking the opportunity to feel God's presence. I'm reminded of so many letters, I have read of different saints to their disciples. I remember one particularly of the Saint Padre Pio in Italy, who was writing to his disciples because at some point he was not allowed to meet them. The church had put some restrictions. And they would say, I'm not feeling God's presence, the church is disbanding, the people are not coming together, I'm being tested, so many things are happening. And again I saw a pattern in his letters to some disciples, and especially to some very close disciples who he was writing often. He said, how if you would only trust me, the Lord is closer to you than ever before. And he said, if you were to see it from my eyes, how could I tell you? How can a parent abandon the child, especially when they're going through trials and, tribulations? So again, we see this, that yes, in his presence, on one level, actually, it would be much easier. That is the blessing of having a saint. You might say, friends, that we are all aspiring to be saints. A saint is a person who is enjoying God's presence all the time. He has practiced on the things we are trying to now today learn and affirm and gradually grow into. Somebody asked Kriyananda ji, sir, how often should we talk to God or feel his presence? You would know the obvious answer was all the time. Actually, it's not so much that, like I prayed also, I said, Lord, be with us. God is always with us. The scriptures say, the saints have said, I'm reminded again of Master's favorite story of Saint Anthony of the desert, where Anthony moved, he lived 120 years, and he moved from one cave to another desert cave to another, and deeper his communion with the Lord went. But still it was close to, Master said, 80 years of such a practice where he still hadn't completely merged himself with that consciousness. And one day he cried out in agony, Lord, when will you come? Why are you not coming? And this was a very testing time for him. And Master said Satan had actually taken a bodily form in the form of vicious animals and whatnot, and the temple where he was praying was beginning to crumble. And he cried out with all his strength one final time, Lord, please come. And Christ appeared to him. And Anthony said, my Lord, where were you all these years when I called out to you? And Master would lovingly share. He said, Christ said to him, oh Anthony, I was just the same with you all these years. That God is with us. But does it not happen so many times? Our mind tricks us. Oh, you can't think of him all the time. But actually, you don't have to think of him. We have to feel him. Master said, of the 8 aspects of God, he said, feeling is the highest one. Actually, Kriyananda ji, towards the end of his life, would repeatedly say, he said, feeling is God. What do we feel really? Bliss. Now, many times, especially I remember when I was beginning to, and still sometimes I find myself in this situation when we are saying, okay, today I'm going to think of God more. But it happens to be a day when we are very busy also. And you say, oh, if I think of him, I'm not able to focus on my work because I have to think that I have to think of him. But again, I have found it much easier to actually call on his presence. Sometimes I'm feeling tired. I just tell God, okay, I'm going to go to a sleep for 2 hours right now, but please, let's continue this presence. And I have found sometimes that my sleep suddenly is very deep, or I come back more refreshed, or the fatigue which was preventing me from feeling his presence suddenly makes it much easier once again. It is gone, and then I can feel that. Similarly, Master would say that you could perhaps try taking a seclusion, for a short time. It could be half a day, it could be a day or longer. Because, friends, what is really necessary in this practice, like I said, in meditation it is easy. And that's why sometimes it's good to tell the students when they're learning to meditate that if you have a profound or a deep experience of, let's say, even peace, which Master said is very universal and comes to everybody in the beginning, he said, I often remind them that make a memory of how you're feeling in the moment. Because then you can recall that memory. And actually, all we have to do is recall it enough number of times to make it more and more profound. Ultimately, last week we were discussing that enlightenment itself is classically defined by Patanjali as Smriti, remembrance. Now, this is such a great drama going on. And Swamiji addresses God as our cosmic friend, our greatest beloved friend. And it's so nice. So sometimes you can fight with this friend and say, and we do, I think all of us go through that period where we say, Lord, I just can't feel you. This is too much. Too much forgetfulness is setting in all the time. But then again, friends, I have seen that calming ourselves. Because, see, it's easier to talk to Him, just like it is easy to talk to anybody. You can go on, but are we listening to them? Are we giving them a chance? And again, think of a friend who has come to your place. Are you giving them a chance to speak? And Master used to say, praying is talking to God. And it is very important to have prayer, chanting, fervor. But in chanting too, which we are singing, Master says the highest chanting is silent and inward. Similarly, meditation, we are feeling God's presence. And so when we are calmly inviting Him, I think we have to, as I said in the beginning, this is a conversation, and we have to say, okay, what do you want to, what are you saying to me? You must be here. Master said He's right behind our thoughts. He knows what we are going to pray. Then why do we talk? Why do we even have a conversation, somebody may say? Again, for our knowledge that He is here. It's like a treasure. We have to dig. We have to discover. It's like a food, you might say. You have to taste it and feel it, and then you say, yes, this is true. So that such is God's presence. Now, I want to share a few stories here because this is a very simple practice. It can be done through japa. It can be done, by like simply Swami suggesting one way. Share every thought and every feeling. There are many benefits to this, friends. Every thought is because we simply are finding ourselves in a place where we have to make decisions. We are, thinking something. We are not sure where this is going. And again, Master said, when you have to pray or when you're talking to God, and Swamiji said that sometimes he found himself in a situation surrounded by people where he could not close his eyes or sit in meditative pose. But he said, nonetheless, I projected a thought from my spiritual eye. This is the broadcasting station, Master said. And then he said, I would feel the response of Divine Mother, which Master says you can talk to Him as mother or father or friend. And, then Swami said, I would feel it. This is very important because God's voice is silence and we have to feel what He's trying to say. Kriyananda ji said, when we start doing that for small things, then we can do it progressively for more important things. He says, we come to a point where it's a continuous flow. There's no pause over there. And he said, you start with a few minutes a day, you go on to few hours a day, and he said, finally you see that you're enjoying His presence through all circumstances, all the time, throughout the day. And Kriyananda ji once, walked into a bookstore. He was friends with the lady who was owning this. This was in Mountain View. It's still there. Now we own it. It's called East West Bookstore. And Swamiji said that particular morning, the lady just came up to him and she said, will you buy this store? I'm growing too old to manage this and maintain it, single-handedly. Will you buy it? And Swami said it was quite a big property, but he just in that moment felt, yes, this is the right thing. And he said, I will. And there was a timeline to it, which he inquired about later and such. And he said it was quite an amount, but he raised the money because it was the right thing to do. If we sometimes apply too much mind, many of Master's foremost disciples, they would say yes first if the Guru is asking. Because we grow through it, and Master would say, if you think too much, you will find many reasons why it is not the right thing for you to do perhaps, and doubts will enter, and ultimately, as one of the Masters said, over-analysis will lead to paralysis, that we won't be able to accomplish it, and somewhere because our feelings are disturbed, our reason will say, oh, it was good that I didn't do that. Whereas maybe it was the right thing to do in the very first place. Also, what are the other benefits of practicing God's presence in our heart? Feeling it, I would say, when we do that, I have seen that many times we may have likes and dislikes. And Master says, don't tell your weaknesses, likes and dislikes also you might say to everyone, others. But with God, share it all. And when circumstances come in our lives, friends, when situations come up, at that time, if we are calm, if we are able to feel His presence, then we can know, oh, this is the right thing for me to do. We can develop the sense of intuition. We can develop actually non-attachment to quite a degree, because we may be going to some place out of habit. Again, Master would make this point repeatedly, that everything is going well. But when the Kurukshetra, when the war began, when the battlefield of life, and that is why I was making that point in the beginning, when we are out there and where circumstances are not so much in our control, they hardly ever are, but out there it's more we are facing them. At that time we can go, when a decision has to be made, Master says most people often make it on the basis of habits. That we end up, as was the case, I think, of Dronacharya, he represented habit, that when the decisive moment came, he was not able to side with the right thing. And here we are trying to listen to God's will, attune our lives to His will. By extension, you might say this is the Guru's will, and we want to develop that ability to listen to them. And also, this is the seat of courage. This is the seat of love. This is the seat of devotion. This is also the seat of emotion. But when we are calm and devoted, I think all of us find nothing impossible, because that is, our heart is there, and somehow courage comes. Another very important thing which we can develop by consciously remaining at the center of our heart is faith. And faith, again, Master says, is not just a belief or a willingness for something. Faith, he says, comes from experience. That, again, we go through circumstances, depending on how we feel, we put out energy, we come back, we ask for more strength. The beauty of the spiritual path, friends, is that God is on our side. He is our friend. Now, I was saying, He created this whole, one may say, why, what was the need to create doubt and confusion and the opportunity for us to get lost? But that's how He has placed it, and that's how we must, the sooner we calm ourselves, the sooner we give Him a chance to speak, the more we will be able to see, actually out of love for Him, the more we will be able to see what is His will for us. On a philosophical level, which is actually not at all false also, who is residing inside of us? If it is God who created us, yes, He gave us an ego identity. Master says that is never ever taken away from us. Even when we merge back with Him, we look back at all the lifetimes we lived. But even some reflection will make us know that God, as Swamiji used to explain, had nothing to create us out of. So He, as consciousness, became thoughts, the energy of the universe, and all the forms. So if He is you and me, in you and me, and He is stuck, then I think by adopting this approach of calmly listening to what the crying baby, you might say, baby God inside of us is saying, how we should, I think we can get a lot of guidance from there. It is also, you can say, our conscience wakens up and we can make better decisions. Now, this is a practice which I think we will perfect over the years, and certainly keep, like I said, like somebody said, what do you do after you find God? Well, you enjoy Him from there onwards. And that is the beauty of having Him. But sometimes we can feel that, no, this is perhaps not going to happen so easily. Maybe we did this practice actually when we sung that chant, Door of My Heart, friends. Today I was suggesting that we sing it in such a way that we have Him already, but we are still chanting Him. Or we can think that after I have sung, I will have Him. And we take those 2 minutes, 5 minutes, and we can make this a daily practice after chanting or times when we are by ourselves, and we feel Him that I have you. I only have to improve this knowing little bit more. Master said that that actually will be our final test. He said, we will ultimately, the thought comes, oh, but I don't have Him. And he says that thought alone can keep Him away from us. So we have to first of all remove the thought that God is not with us. And listening to this, one monk said, but sir, if I just said, I have Him already, I wouldn't have Him, would I? And Master says, you would, except that you answered your own question by saying, I wouldn't, would I, wouldn't I? So which is to say that that doubt enters just as quickly, you might say. But again, like I said, keeping a memory of our meditative experience, keeping those moments of seclusion, calmness, feeling, ask God, for this prayer. I once read a story where Ramana Maharshi was telling one of his disciples, "Why are you wasting so many hours a day?" And the fellow thought, "Sir, I am serving you from morning to evening." And then this was time when he was departing for sleep. He said, "Please tell me, where did I waste my hours?" He says, "You have hardly ever called me to help you when you sleep." And I read that story, and it I said, "This is amazing." And Master would tell his disciples, he said, I enter you all, and I go through how your day was, and I'm sure he doesn't enter just for the sake of it. He must be entering to see how he can help us. Swami Kriyanandaji said so many times, he would have a dream, or he would wake up with a thought. That's the kind of relaxation, presence of God I'm talking about. But for that we have to call him, we have to invite him, we have to broadcast and project that thought, and then feel him over here. Now, we talk about seeing God, and sometimes that definition or that phrase makes us think that, oh, I'll see him now. I'm sure we'll see him face to face. Master said one day we can see him as light, but Master still placed feeling higher than anything else. And I remember in Pune, in one of the talks, somebody asked Swami Kriyanandaji once, "Sir, have you seen God?" And Swami said, "No, I haven't." And then he said, "But I see him in you and in everybody." And then he said, "And I feel him all the time." Wasn't that such a beautiful reply? That what does it really mean to see? Because we are so used to seeing is believing, as people say, we can forget that feeling is perhaps higher. So let's give this practice a chance, and you can make your own based on your daily schedule how you can accommodate this, or so I should say, bring this practice more alive in your day-to-day schedule. I want to close with one of Swamiji's songs. This is called I Live Without Fear. Though green summer fade and winter draw near, my Lord, in your presence I live without fear. Through tempest, through snows, through turbulent tide, the touch of your hand is my strength and my guide. I ask for no riches that death can destroy. I crave only thee, your love and your joy. So as this beautiful little song says, which was one of Swami's favorites, that we can derive our strength, our courage, our guidance, and above all, feel his presence as love and joy inside our hearts all the time. Joy to you, friends.